Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio Podcast, where it's all about helping you complete your financial journey to retirement. Discover time-tested strategies and get unconventional insights into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Break away from the herd and go for the retirement you dream of. And now, here's your host, the income engineer, Kraig Strom.
All right, back on Personal Pension Radio. Thank you so much. I actually realized how excited I was about this episode about the time I hit that mic button and my volume level spiked up on my my mixing program over here. I really appreciate it when listeners and especially clients who are still listeners, found me on the podcast, are now clients, when they actually send me homework that I can use for my podcast. So that's coming up, and you'll see that or hear that in just a moment. So you are on Personal Pension Radio. Yes, I am the income engineer, broadcasting from the Personal Pension Radio studio workshop here in Southern California. Those of you who know me here locally, and maybe you saw it on Facebook, I am recovering from one of those Personal Pension Radio workshop injuries. It's always just tons of fun when you do something that is YouTube worthy, but I forgot to have my camera running. It would have been a hilarious fail. So if you have not been to personalpensionradio.com, check it out. That's where all the back episodes are, show notes and such. You can also find us, of course, on iTunes is the easiest way to find the show, SoundCloud, and so forth. But personalpensionradio.com if you haven't checked it out. If you're missing something, if you've got a question about something, an episode you can't find, please just go ahead and reach out to me, email me. You can contact me actually through the website at Personal Pension Radio, but a lot of folks have actually been reaching out to me on LinkedIn. So if you go to LinkedIn and you find Kraig with a K, Strom, S-T-R-O-M, you'll find me right there on LinkedIn. If you search my name in Google, you'll find me for about 5 or 6 pages, so you can learn everything you might want to know about the income engineer. Now, let's jump right in, because I've got, as you might imagine, I've got a lot to say. But I want to make sure, just a quick reminder, what this show is about, what my mission in life is. As a certified financial planning professional, I'm very comprehensive in the way that I look at individuals and their financial planning and their financial life in general. This show is really focused in on an area of the financial world that gets very little attention from the Wall Street educational machine, that Wall Street marketing machine, and that area is retirement income. The idea of actually pulling lifestyle and income and enjoyment from all this hard work and savings and investment, et cetera, that is so rarely spoken of. And I guess I would say it this way, spoken of in a way that would cause someone to really look forward to it. This idea of lifestyle and income is often comes with sacrifice, cut your income expectations, maybe you can live on less, those kinds of sad, disappointing conversations. My mission in life is to help you go after the optimized retirement income, go after maximum lifestyle, maximum retirement income, but it does not happen. This is the key. This is where Wall Street and I deviate. It does not happen with investments. It doesn't happen with life insurance or Roth IRAs or 401ks, real estate or annuities. It doesn't happen with any of those things by themselves. None of those things by themselves will help you maximize your retirement income. You've got to have an actual plan, a strategy that integrates the best of all of these things. For example, life insurance, real estate, investments, annuities, all of these things working together in a strategically designed income plan. You can absolutely go after maximum retirement income, but not without a plan. I really want to make sure that if you haven't already done so, talk to your financial advisor, or I just recently met a listener. We met on a go-to meeting, and he is in another state. He's out there in New Mexico, and he'd actually found me through iTunes and through the podcast, and he had, in fact, done this thing that I have encouraged people to do. numbers of you have actually gone out and done it. Ask what your retirement income number is under the current system that you're working under this current retirement expectation that you're working under. Find out what your retirement income number is. Go to the retirement nest egg calculator that Vanguard puts out. Type in your numbers. Find out what your retirement income number expectation might be. And then remember I said this. I am here to give you hope for retirement. If you run your numbers on one of those retirement income calculators and you think, well, that's an okay number, I could live on that, that's good, I would ask you to think a little differently. Like, wow, is it possible to have more? Well, could I have more without adding more risk? That's the question I want you to ask. And if your number from that retirement income calculator or from your financial planner comes back like, oh, is that all I get? Really? Is that the retirement income I have to look forward to? I want you to know that I'm here to turn the light back on at the end of the retirement tunnel. You just have to be willing to stop following the conventional Wall Street advice because conventional wisdom has not worked. It has just completely failed this generation trying to retire with the dream of that retirement now kind of fading away and reality setting in. I want to help you. I want to help you actually build and protect your wealth and make sure that you have a system ready to be able to enjoy maximum lifestyle, maximum income in retirement. Now, before I move past it, I always like to remember, quick, short disclosure before the long one at the end. I am not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I am a certified financial planner professional. But with that said, please don't act on things that you hear on my show as if it was advice for you. This show is meant to be informational, not actionable for you and your specific situation. I really also encourage you, please don't act on things that you hear from financial entertainers. Financial entertainers would be people like Dave Ramsey, for example, that have no financial licensing. They have no government oversight to make sure that they're giving good, solid information. Please meet with a qualified financial advisor. I'm not shy. I want that financial advisor to be me. I work with folks all across the country thanks to technology. The world is very small nowadays. We can basically have a face-to-face conversation, and you could be in Tennessee. As I say that because I just recently started working with someone in Tennessee, and I can be here in California. The world is very small, so please meet with a qualified financial advisor before you start acting on anything. And I would encourage you, if it's not me, please go look for a certified financial planning professional. That is someone where he or she has worked really hard to be able to get and maintain that designation. Now, the first segment of my show is called Watch Your Step. I'm actually going to lump this into segment 2, which is client and listener questions or stories. Because one of my clients, and actually previously a listener, still listening, thank you so much, Josh, actually shared an article from Bloomberg that I'm going to cover today. I want to just review it and just give you my thoughts on it. But those of you who are listening today and you didn't catch it last week on the last episode, I shared a story of some friends of mine who were learning a very expensive mistake having listened to Dave Ramsey for advice on real estate. And they had paid off their house 4 years ago and basically credited Dave Ramsey's philosophies for having done so, and now admit that they can realize now that they've made a big mistake. If you want to listen to that, go back and listen to the previous episode. Got a lot of feedback on that. Now, this week, so thank you again, Josh sent me this article that the article title from Bloomberg, Rich Retirees are hoarding cash out of fear, while younger generations get poorer. Older Americans can't seem to spend it all. I will have a link in the show notes. If the show notes don't get up soon enough for you and you want it quicker, just contact me on LinkedIn or personalpensionradio.com. You can find me that way, and send me an email, and I'll send you a link to the article. It takes a long time sometimes for me to get these show notes up and approved and all that kind of stuff. But now, the title, Rich Retirees Are Hoarding Cash Out of Fear. Now, I want to dissect that a little bit because I also want you to stop and please consider the source. I actually spent the day with a high school, in a high school classroom last week. It was my annual visit to the local high school graduating seniors for the AP economics and math classes. I have a friend in my Rotary who invites me in just to have an open conversation with the graduating seniors on financial matters and financial discussions. And I spent a good deal of time with them this year helping them consider the source. And what I mean by that is that you've got to look at where the information or the information bias is coming from. So first of all, Bloomberg is a big Wall Street firm, and Wall Street controls the marketing message. Remember who controls the education system that teaches financial planners how to teach you, the general public, how to retire and such, right? So just remember that the Wall Street machine is exactly that same machine that finances Bloomberg.com and Bloomberg whatever. I mean, Bloomberg has its own money-making machine as a corporation for sure, but remember, who advertises, who controls the purse strings for most of the advertising for Wall Street firms like Bloomberg? Wall Street, right? Wall Street spends billions and billions of dollars a year on advertising. They are the big advertising dog in the yard, right? So just consider the source. Now, rich retirees hoarding cash. I pick it apart a bit right in the beginning. Who's counting them as rich, right? Rich retirees hoarding cash. Well, it could also be said that there's a lot of rich retirees that are just spending cash like crazy. So what are they calling rich? I didn't get a whole lot out of it as far as what they're calling rich. What's the net worth that they're talking about? Because I've met some folks that would be considered under the classic definition of rich, and they are not hoarding cash. They are spending money, traveling, enjoying life like crazy. Now, granted, they might be spending money at a pace that is not running them out of money because they just happen to have a lot of money to spend. So the rich generally don't have a problem spending money. Hoarding cash, I guess. But again, I'm trying to say, what's the definition of rich here, right? Well, younger generations, that's easy. Think millennials and coming up under the millennials, right? The millennials getting poorer. Totally believe that. I'm watching that happen with some of my clients right now. Now, this article really goes around this new study that finds many U.S. retirees keep saving even after they've retired. Well, that's personally not new to me. That happens all the time. I remember even as a young financial advisor a long time ago, I remember meeting Bernard. Bernard is actually, well, Bernard's no longer with us, but I always remember Bernard. When he came to visit me, he was introduced by a CPA, and he came to visit me at my office, and he was wearing Dickies and they were clean, but just Dickies, a good, simple work outfit. And he drove in an old Buick, probably 15 years old at the time. And Bernard was about 75 years old at the time, and he still wore Dickies, and he drove his old car. Well, as it turns out, Bernard had lost his wife a few years earlier, but they had lived a good life together. But Bernard essentially had been saving money, saving money. Even in retirement, he was saving money, because of the generation that he comes from, right? So this new study that finds U.S. retirees keep saving after they've retired, well, let's talk about the generation that is retiring. That's the baby boomers. And what did the baby boomers' parents live through? They lived through the Great Depression. So saving and keeping a war chest, if you will, emergency money, safe money. That was the mantra that the baby boomer generation heard from mom and dad. It is still part of that psyche of the baby boomer generation to keep saving, to keep accumulating. So back to Bernard. When I met Bernard, we got to talking about, why don't you spend money? Why don't you buy a car? He had lots and lots of money saved up. Why don't you buy a car? Well, I don't need a car. Why don't you update your house and fix up your house? Oh, my house is fine. He basically just was comfortable living the way he was. And when I asked him if he had more money, more income, what would he spend it on? And he said, I'd spend it on my kids and my grandkids. And that's created a conversation around, all right, what if we could do X, Y, and Z, and now you could have more income and we can leave more behind for the kids? Well, sure enough, he loved the idea of leaving more for the kids. He loved the idea of being able to spend the income on grandchildren, for example. And so we put a plan in motion that effectively increased his current income by about 30-40%, and he had a really good increase in his income. Some of the other ideas we talked about were buying another car and spending some more money on himself and doing nice things for himself. Well, fast forward about a year and a half after I met Bernard, and we had met a number of times after that, but going over his finances, sure enough, exactly like this article says, he had just saved even more money. He had not spent money on the car. He did spend some money on the grandkids and the kids, but he really didn't spend the extra income because it was just built into his DNA that he just wasn't that. He was going to keep himself under control when it came to his spending, and he would save instead of spend, right? It would save instead of spend. So this idea that a new study finds U.S. retirees keep saving even after they're retired, well, yeah, I mean, you didn't need a new study for that. I think that's been the case with the baby boomer generation, especially for a long time. Okay. Now, it must mean, now this is what this again, the nuance of this. When it says baby boomers cut spending and increase their savings, right? This article says that by it, the folks that are over age 60, they cut their spending by like 2.5% a year. Okay, again, they're not being detailed, so I'm assuming this must mean that they cut their spending on lifestyle because life gets more expensive by at least the inflation rate every year, right? If you live here in California, for example, you look at what's happening in California, we once again are back on top. I think we've been close to the top number 1 or 2 every year for a long time. The highest taxes of any state in the union, and our wonderful state government voted to increase our gas tax again. So just being able to drive a car, the gas tax price went up some, 20 or 30%, some ridiculous number. Coming back, I'm assuming that the article is referencing this cut in spending is on lifestyle because life in general just gets more expensive by at least the inflation rate every year, right? It goes on to say that yet these retirees, or at least the affluent ones, now, there's a good word. This idea of rich is what they used in the title, and here now they're using the word affluent. Affluent, it makes more sense. Now, they're not necessarily rich, but affluent, that leads me to believe this is somebody they've got a pretty healthy investments and savings portfolio and so forth, right? So yet, it says, these retirees, or at least the affluent ones, aren't spending it. So they're saving money, but they're not spending it. It turns out they are afraid of the unknown. That is right from the article. It turns out they are afraid of the unknown. I personally think that retirees and those retiring soon are afraid of someone they know very well. It's called the boogeyman, and it happened in 2008 and 9 and 10. It was the worst, right? Less than a decade. The world experienced the worst financial meltdown that we've seen in the last 2 or 3 generations, 2 generations at least, right? That's that boogeyman. They're not afraid of the unknown. They're afraid of exactly what they saw less than 10 years ago happening again. It was worse for the baby boomers because they had the least amount of the most valuable commodity in retirement planning. Let me say that again. That boogeyman, that recession, the Great Recession, was even worse for baby boomers and those who were looking towards retirement because they had the least amount of the most valuable commodity in retirement planning, which is time. People planning on retirement were set back on their heels like they'd been punched in the chin. In the wake of that financial crisis, retirees or those soon to be retired or hopeful for retirement, they became afraid. They became afraid of a boogeyman they had never actually paid attention to. That boogeyman came out from behind the curtain, behind the door, behind the shadows, and was front and center and scared the holy heck out of people. They're not afraid of the unknown. They are afraid of that exact thing happening again. That's my opinion, folks, but I've talked to a lot of people, and I study this. I do this every day of the week, all the time, right? So I think people are just truly afraid of history, short-term history, repeating itself. Now, this article goes on to reference a 2016 study in the Journal of Financial Planning. It found that the wealthiest fifth of U.S. retirees are spending 53% less than they could have. 53% less than they could have. Meanwhile, the poorest 40% generally spend more than they safely should. The median retiree. Now, let's stop there because, again, I want you to consider the message. Who says, by what definition are they spending? Right? That they could spend more. That the poorest 40% generally spend more than they safely should. By whose definition? If it is by Wall Street's definition, and you've listened to this show before, you know that Wall Street's spending recommendations has been very self-serving to the Wall Street machine. You've heard 4% withdrawal rates in retirement, right? People drawing out more than they should safely draw out. Well, who sets that bar? Well, of course, Wall Street and the Wall Street machine in general sets that bar. I'm here to tell you that if you build your retirement income plan correctly, you don't have to live with this idea of what you should settle for safely under the Wall Street system. You can actually have a very healthy income without risking the longevity of that income. Okay? And the idea that the wealthiest percentage, a fifth of the U.S. retirees, are spending 53% less than they could have, okay, great. Well, if they had a retirement income plan that they could actually ignite some confidence in them, they might actually spend it. But the Wall Street retirement story is not one that engenders a great deal of confidence. Okay? Now, Texas Tech University had done a survey. Now, they referenced this, and I like Texas Tech University. One of my favorite people, Wade Pfau, Dr. Wade Pfau, was interviewed early on in this podcast a long time ago, and I like Dr. Pfau. He came from Texas Tech University, and or he was affiliated through Texas Tech in a number of research papers and things like that. And this was a Texas Tech University survey referenced in this article. So the article asked this, or the survey asked this question: what is your greatest fear about managing your finances in retirement? Right? What is your greatest fear? So here are the 5 or 4 answers. These are the 4 answers, and I'll get to the top answer that they have listed, but they summarized of all the answers. Number 4, dying before I could spend all my savings, right? So dying before I could spend all my savings. Again, I smile. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be, but I can't. I think this is a dumb question. Somewhere, when they say, what is your greatest fear about managing your finances, they didn't just, generally with these kind of surveys, they don't just leave it out there. They give people options. They give people a selection. It would be very difficult to categorize all of the answers if we just let it be a completely random survey. So I have to believe that they put this on there as an option to choose. Dying before I can spend all of my savings was number 4. Now, I personally think that's a dumb question or a dumb one to put on there, because I cannot recall in 18 plus years of doing this anybody who actually really did believe in the idea of bouncing their last check, like spending all of their savings. I had people say things like, I am going out naked and poor just like I came in this world. I'm going to write my last check and it's going to bounce after I die. Well, it sounds good, but once I've gotten to know those people, they don't believe that. They want to make sure that they have a cushion. They don't want to get close to spending all of their savings. It's not even in the realm of possibility for most people. Okay. Number 3 on the list was not leaving a large enough inheritance. That is, in fact, a big one. I see that one frequently. I actually heard this specifically last week. I sat with a client doing an annual review, and he specifically chooses to live on far less income and forego things on his bucket list. And he's in his, now just after he's 76. So he lives on far less income than he could. And he forgoes bucket list items like travel so that he can leave more money to his daughter. Now, I appreciate leaving an inheritance, but dang, I couldn't help it. I mean, I can't twist his arm. But it really pains me to see someone who has worked so many years, worked so hard, paid for his daughter's college, supported her, helped her, all of these things. And today he sits on a paid off house. He's got guaranteed accounts. He's got excellent income. He's got everything he needs, and he could have more income and travel while he's healthy, but he still sacrifices to leave a greater inheritance. Now, I commend him. I appreciate it. I respect it. Still, I wish that there was that part of him that, I just wish. Now, the second one, not being able to live my desired lifestyle. Okay. And this is the irony of these things, right? Is that the number 3 one is, I want to leave a larger inheritance, but number 2, right? The number 2, what's your greatest fear is not being able to live my desired lifestyle. Well, I just told you my client has a vision of his desired lifestyle, but he's not living it even though he could, because in his mind, the inheritance is more important. He's going to prioritize the inheritance over his own happiness, and that's just the way it's going to be. The number 1 item on this survey from Texas Tech University on what's your greatest fear about managing your finances in retirement was not knowing how much I can spend safely. So Professor Christopher Browning from Texas Tech University said, quote, "We found that even in a worst case scenario, they could have spent more. There has to be another explanation, right? There has to be another explanation. And here's what he said. Reasons that are not rational. Remember what I said in a previous episode? I talked about this phrase, irrational exuberance. People getting all excited about the stock market going up and up and up, for example. Well, here, Professor Christopher Browning from Texas Tech University is referencing this idea that even though their research found that people could have spent more, much like I just said in my client's case, he could spend more, right? That it's got to come down to reasons that are not rational. They're just not rational. And one of those irrational reasons may be a simple thing, a simple habit. There is something strange that happens when people retire. All of a sudden now, you're not getting a regular paycheck. And that scares the holy heck out of people. It really does. This article touches on a few things like annuities and bond ladders and things like that say there are ways that you could have a fix, that you can get a consistent income that would mimic a paycheck. And it references these things almost in passing. This idea that you could set up a bond portfolio or annuities and different insurance products that could cover it. But really, it gave it such a small snippet that I actually noticed it. Like, well, that's an unfortunate opportunity to really dive into maybe how do you help people change this? How do you help people change this habit of not spending the money, maybe out of fear of not getting a regular paycheck? I've seen that concern in people when they are getting close to that retirement timeline. They're really thinking about, you think about this, that paycheck, whether it's coming from the business you own or the business you work at, that paycheck is the gold or the golden goose, right? You're getting those golden eggs, and that's the paycheck. That when you look at goals set before retirement, a lot of people abandon those goals. They abandon the predetermined spending plans and budgets because they're terrified to see the balances on the retirement accounts drop even just a little bit. And I've seen that before. I've actually seen it with clients that they just get frozen when the balances go down, even though the balance may have gone down because they're pulling money out according to a retirement plan, right? Now, here's where things, I'm going to probably, as I wrap up here, I'm going to get a little riled up because this is the part that just gets me, right? This is the part that gets me. That even as retirees live longer and healthier lives, they become more pessimistic about the economy and the stock market and their own financial situations. This is what the article says. And then I'm going to read it one more time, and then I'll give you my take on it. Even as retirees live longer, healthier lives, they've become more pessimistic about the economy, the stock market, and their own financial situation. Well, I wonder why. Hello? Why? Why on earth would anybody be so pessimistic about the economy and the stock market and their own financial situation? Isn't their retirement system working the way it was promised 20, 30, 40 years ago? Isn't the retirement system giving them the picture that they had always dreamed of? Oh, no, it's not, right? Consider the source, right? This article is written in Bloomberg. It's a Wall Street firm. It's Wall Street that controls the message, right? That's why people are upset. That's why they're pessimistic. Baby boomers aren't always pessimistic or becoming more pessimistic because of the economy or the stock market. They're becoming pessimistic because what they were promised all these years, the retirement system, this is the way you retire. You save more money. You max out your 401k. This is how we do it. It is failing them. It is failing the retirees that are going into retirement that are actually brave enough to ask the question, how much income can I have? Remember that question? How much income can I have? Ask that question, get a really disappointing answer from the Wall Street machine, and you might become pessimistic too, right? Consider the source. Our professor friend, Mr. Browning, goes on to say, after a lifetime of saving, it requires some psychological gymnastics to start spending your nest egg. Mr. Browning suggested that financial planners, listen to this crazy talk. Professor Browning suggests that financial planners urge their thriftiest clients to make big purchases like a second home or a fancy car before they retire out of their pot of savings. The idea, he said, is, listen to this, drives me nuts, training people to spend. How irresponsible and crazy would that be if I, as a financial planner, looking at someone's finances, I don't know how long they're going to live. I don't know what the economy will be like. I don't know what uncertainties lie around the corner. So I'm going to teach my clients to make large purchases, big purchases, out of their pot of savings that presumably is intended to be used for retirement income and lifestyle sustaining, right? So that I can train them to spend. Oh my gosh, just kills me. Make big purchases like second home or fancy cars. Training people to spend. Seriously. What about training? Here's this. What about training financial advisors on the economic rules of retirement income? Huh? Maybe? What about training economics professors at Texas Tech University all of the nuances and the economic rules of retirement income and how to combine those with accumulation and investment strategy with distribution strategy so that we can have certainty around our retirement income? Because I'll venture this. I'll boldly say this, that retirees who have more certainty around their paycheck, their income, their cash flow, certainty eliminates pessimistic attitudes towards retirement and their finances. What about training Wall Street? Here's a big one. What about training Wall Street to publicly admit that the retirement system that they have overseen since 1978 has failed the baby boomer generation and is set to fail the next sequential generations after that? Okay? What about that? Here's my conspiracy theory. For those of you who have not heard it before, I'll share it real quick. Here's my conspiracy theory, okay? And I start with this question. When was the 401k created? When was the 401k, the modern retirement system, the dominant retirement system that we have today, when was it created? Some people are saying 1940s, 1950s, 60s maybe? No, 1978. People, the 401k, right, came into existence in 1978. This generation right now, this group of people is the first to ever try to retire in the 401k era, okay? So here's my conspiracy theory around the retirement system that we have today. So back in 1978, maybe a little earlier, the government organized a controlled hunt, where you get to pay to go hunt some wild wildebeest from some far-off land. There are people that actually pay money to go hunt animals that have been brought in for sport. So the government organizes this hunt, okay? And they go off to the Congress has created this law and they're looking at it and they're going, okay, we need somebody to market this new hunt that we have. We're going to gather all these people up in this fenced-in game preserve that we've created called the IRAs and 401k world, right? We're going to gather them all up there in this controlled place, and we control the rules. We've got to market that. We got to talk to somebody about marketing that. So Congress goes to Wall Street and says, hey, we've got this new program where we're going to basically enroll a bunch of people into our controlled, organized system that'll put them in this big fenced-in area. And we really need someone to help us market it and pitch it and manage the money. Okay, would you help us? And of course, Wall Street says, yeah, we will do that all day long. No problem. We'll do that. And by the way, $25 trillion later, $25 trillion in 401ks and IRAs and pension plans and all these. It's an awesome system, right? We've got a lot of people in this fenced-in game preserve. So Congress needed someone to market it and sell it. Wall Street says, yes, we will do that for sure. But now Congress needs somebody to be able to pick off those people necessary to collect the taxes that have yet to be paid, for example. So they go to the IRS, and the IRS says, sure, we'll be your hired gun, and we'll go get those taxes, and we'll harvest those taxes whenever the time is right? So that's my conspiracy theory around 401k and IRA. The government organized a hunt. It really got going in 1978, and $25 trillion later, millions and millions and millions of Americans standing shoulder to shoulder inside the fenced-in game preserve, waiting for the IRS to pick us off, right? I mean, that's it. So what are we teaching the public, right? What about teaching the public that retirement cannot be fixed with investments alone? That retirement income cannot be fixed with solely things offered by Wall Street. This article touched on it just ever so briefly, that the answer to retirement income might include annuities. It might include life insurance. It could include a way to balance real estate that transitions into a bond portfolio. Who knows? But it is not just Wall Street solutions that will fix the retirement income dilemma, right? It's just not going to happen. So this idea of training people to spend, oh gosh, I wish we could actually train financial advisors on the economic rules of retirement income. If we could train more financial advisors to understand the other half of that retirement planning conversation that Wall Street is not teaching, that would be magic. Unfortunately, it's still going to be just a handful of us like myself, the income engineer, out there just yelling from this microphone in my shop, ask for your retirement income number. Ask for your retirement income number. If you have not run your retirement income number with your financial planner or on one of those online tools, please do that. Get yourself a wake-up call. Wake up, and when you're ready, and even if you'd like to, I'll run the current Wall Street income analysis for you, and then I'll give you a retirement income strategy analysis as well. You can compare them yourself. So there is your call to action. Remember, the future belongs to those who take action. Do it today. Get going. Personal Pension Radio. Contact me there. I very much look forward to it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please leave a review in iTunes. I've had a few additional reviews in iTunes. I greatly appreciate it when you leave me a review. And also send me any questions or things that you might want me to cover. So much in this article. I tried to cover as much as I could without going 3 hours. So that's it until next time. Have a great one wherever you are. Thanks again for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio podcast. If you missed anything during the show, that's okay. We took the notes for you. Check the show notes for links, offers, and a full transcript. And don't forget to head over to personalpensionradio.com and download your free retirement income report. While you are there, we would appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening.
Now for the disclosure. Information presented is for educational purposes only and is not intended for solicitation, sale or purchase of any security or financial product. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and your tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed here. The term personal pension refers to a marketing name designed to educate future retirees and retirees about the economic principles behind creating their own pension-like income. The term personal pension is not intended to be confused with a defined benefit pension plan offered by an employer or by a government entity.